in isolation, it's important not to develop bad habits, right? So one thing that you can do is set your video camera up your phone and videotape your own performance. So let's talk about some what we call fault checking, okay? How do you know that what you're doing is proper and good form? And form's always gonna break down a little bit when you are in an actual fight, so you can't make the jump and say, well, like, you know, nobody fights perfectly. No fucking shit. But the bottom line is if you don't have good discipline and good form, the degradation, if you go in already fucked up, you're gonna be really fucked up in a fight, right? You're gonna be wide open and all that stuff. So again, you know, it's like shooting. If you're shooting fast and accurate, and your rounds are actually touching on a double tap, for example, in a real situation, you're likely to be 4 fingers apart. If you're doing it with no combat stress or anything like that, and your rounds are 4 fingers apart, then you're likely to be hip and shoulder when you get real life stress and real life duress dysfunction. Okay, so let's just talk about some of the most common fault checks. First one is, and you've heard me say this before, is that your hands don't stay up. Now you'll change what your hands are doing, right? If I'm doing guard or peekaboo Mexican style and here, or if I'm doing regular guard here or here, long guard, okay, might be Muay Thai style. So my hands may change, but they're always fucking up in front of my face, okay? It works for people who can make it work. I'm not a big fan of the Philly shell as a standard defense because most people are not fast enough to pull it off. Most people are not Roy Jones. They're not Floyd Mayweather, okay? They're just not. So what happens is they try to do that and they just get the shit pummeled out of them. I like my hands up, Mexican style. I like them high, I like to keep them high. That way I can parry, I can catch, I can guard, I can block, I can put all of that together, okay, so it's redundant. So the very first thing is hands up. Next thing is rear heel up. So if you look at my rear heel is gonna stay up. Now, that's important because I've got to be able to plyometrically move. I've got to be able to push and move, pushing off my strong foot. If I'm flat-footed, okay, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Also, too, when you're on the streets, if I'm backing up, right, and my foot is flat and I keep bringing my foot back like this, the likelihood of me impacting a curb or something like this flat-footed means that my shoulders will go past my hips, my toes will come up, and I'll be off balance, may stumble or fall to the ground, okay? But if I keep my heel up, when I back up there, I'll feel that, and I'll always be able to maintain my balance. So your rear heel wants to stay up, okay? Next thing is that when you throw straight, okay? Don't get sloppy and start doing like street punching like this, right? There's a time to throw them when you see an opportunistic shot, but generally speaking, straight shots that come straight down the middle, whether it's a finger jab, or whether it's a real jab, or whether it's a palm heel, are much harder to deal with than things that come from outside, okay? Think about it like the axis of the bore of a gun. You want that pointed straight at someone. You want your punches going straight at somebody, okay? Straight at somebody. Next thing is, return your hands to the defensive position. I said this in the first video we did today. One hand goes to work, the other one stays home. Okay, so if I'm punching or hitting or doing anything like that, one hand is out, the other one's gonna keep my guard up. So all I'm doing is transferring my hands, right? And that's a discipline to be able to do that, to remember that I don't just get to forget defense and start wailing. And you see that all the time in bad boxing videos, you see it in bad combatives videos, you see it in bad martial arts videos. People forget the other motherfucker gets a turn. He gets to punch you back. And when you miss or when you have an ineffective hit, he may already be hitting. So if you're out of position, take what's gonna happen, okay? Remember too that the whole idea of feinting and fakes in the ring or in the cage or doing professional fighting or combat sports, the whole point is to pull somebody out of position. So it may not be the first or second shot or third shot even that gets you, but the fourth shot. In Hazlitt's book on boxing, he actually says, okay, and this is a seminal boxing reference, he didn't even call them combinations, he called them setups. And the whole idea was the first few punches or feints and fakes would draw somebody's hands out so that you could get the punch that you wanted, all right? Now, kids on the street, they may not be formally trained, but the way that they move and walk is designed to get people to jump like this, okay? So again, they could get that right off the first one if you overreact. You don't want to overreact. your guard stays intact. Your hands come up and they protect the crown of your head to the width of your shoulders to about the top of your hips. So your hands are going to be parked right here, and I can do everything I need to with head movement and catching, parrying, blocking, and all of that I need to. I don't need to reach for shit, okay? So that's a fourth thing, right? We want to make sure that we maintain our guard. Next thing is that you're breathing correctly, okay? Every time you hit, you want a sharp exhalation of air that tightens the core. It makes you less susceptible to counter-striking and protects you, right? So a lot of times people will hold their breath through a combination and then take a big gasp of air, and then hold their breath through another combination, and then boom, have another gasp of air. That can create hypoxia. You get a little bit gassed, okay? You start to get a little bit lightheaded, your mouth will go dry, it's all bad, okay? So you wanna make sure that that's not happening. Generally speaking, when you look at your videos, look at a particular thing. So in other words, as you play it back, look at your footwork. Did you shuffle step? Did you stay on balance? Where were your hands? Look at a particular thing, then rewind it, and then look at another particular thing, like where were my hands? Did my hands stay up? And then rewind it, and then look where my hips turning over. Is my rear heel up? Because if you try to look at it all at once, you'll miss the faults that you're trying to correct, okay? No matter what it is in sports performance, back in the day when we used to shoot at a very, very, very high level in counterterrorism, hours and hours and hours of video of draw and shoot. Just standing on the line and drawing and shooting to make sure that there was no extra movement, that there was that we were on our sight line, that the weapon was being turned at the appropriate place, that we were riding the trigger out. The only way that you're going to see that is by video. Okay, so it's an absolutely instrumental part of what you do. All right, and that's just a little bit on fault checking and how to make sure that you're not developing bad habits.